Others, he's and she's, welcome to this very special edition of My Anime Podcast. Today we will be talking about Star Wars Visions. We're going to be doing live reactions to all 9 parts tonight as we break down our thoughts and feelings about this latest endeavor involving some of the top anime studios and one of the top selling IPs in existence. I'm your host Yata, and I'm joined today on his sofa by Naraku.
What's up, Weebelows?
It's been a while, Naraku.
It has.
For all of us. Busy times. We're kind of coming towards the arse end of lockdown now, so we thought a way to celebrate it would be to watch some Star Wars. This is your idea. This is your brainchild because you're a bit of a Star Wars otaku.
I'm not a bit. I am a Star Wars fan. You put a lightsaber and you put some space wizards in a TV show and I'll watch it. So it's one of those things where I'm a Star Wars fan that likes anime, but I'd definitely say I'm a Star Wars fan first.
And I am an anime fan who is aware of the existence of Star Wars. I've seen most of the movies and played none of the games, read none of the novels, don't know what's canon, don't know what isn't canon. I know they're owned by Disney, and I think I'm knowledgeable enough to not get totally lost during this, but you will be our resident expert when it comes to all things Warsy of Stars, and I will try and do my best to be the pseudo-anime expert.
I think you're probably more than pseudo. As for my Star Wars credentials, I'll just say Callisto was the worst of Luke Skywalker's girlfriends, which means I've read all the books, including the bad ones, and I've seen all the movies, and if it has Star Wars to it, I've watched it. I even suffered through Droids and Rebels, even though Rebels wasn't that bad. So I'm definitely somewhat knowledgeable when it comes to this.
Star Wars Christmas special?
I have seen that as well, including the Wookiee Life Day.
Okay. I'm in no position to question you whether or not you have watched that. I'm just aware that it existed, and I'm probably safe in assuming that it was of dubious quality.
It was a trip. It's very much a thing of the 70s. It's not very good, but I mean, it is a trip. I'll just say that.
Double trip. Okay, so how we're going to do this is we're going to watch each of these 9 parts in isolation. Then we're going to turn on the microphones. We're going to talk for 10 minutes. That is the shtick. That is the gimmick for this on each of these 9 different parts. And we'll have a 10-minute breakdown on the arse end of each of these. And then we will wrap it up at the end and see how our thoughts and feelings are on the whole when it's all done. So what we're going to do is we're going to have some musical drop here, and we will be back after part 1, which is the duel. And we are back, and we have just finished Star Wars Visions Part 1, The Duel. And the egg timer is starting now. We have 10 minutes. Thoughts?
All right, well, the first one is that I already knew this was not canon, and good God, is it not canon, because they broke about 100 different rules there, putting people in where they're not supposed to be, and the lightsaber colors didn't matter, really, and all that kind of stuff. So I guess my expectations were at least some canon was going to be involved, but that they didn't play by any rules, so I have to throw that preconception right out. It was okay. It struck me a little bit as Mandalorian-like. I'm not in love with that kind of animation that they did. So it was one of those things that was bad. I thought the interesting parts of the fight, I thought the idea of meshing, obviously they were trying to mesh, feudal era Japan with Star Wars, so some of those designs were interesting to me. But overall, I wasn't particularly impressed by this one.
Okay, so this one was produced by Kamikaze Doga, which I'm not overly familiar with. I guess their biggest title to date would have been doing some work on early JoJo Bizarre Adventures. I don't know if they were outsourced by Studio David, and they also did Batman Ninja, which I guess from what I saw here and comparing it to Batman Ninja, they're definitely in the same sort of realm. This one's very stylized, clearly heavily influenced by Akira Kurosawa. There's many shots just pinched straight out of movies of his, and that's pretty cool. That's a nice little influence. It's very on the nose, I guess, in terms of what we got subject matter wise and choosing him as an influence. But I'm there for it. It made it interesting. I didn't love some of the overlays on it. They had this celluloid overlay, which got a little bit tiresome at the beginning. Love the opening credit shot. Is again very Kurosawa. Also, it looked like something you could see from Tezuka, very old school anime style. 3D models were kind of choppy. It was probably unpleasant almost to the eye. Movement was a little bit clunky in places, especially out of combat. Now, in terms of like the story, there wasn't really much to it, as you said. A couple of impressive visual moments. I thought the Lady Sith, because there was two.
Yep.
Two Siths were battling. That's kind of the twist of this one, which I assume he was a twist. He was a Sith. I'm not 100% sure. He was wielding a red lightsaber, but
wielding two of the red lightsabers.
It was a little bit confusing. He seems to be like a headhunter. That was what we got at the end there when he revealed that he had several like gems, I guess.
Kyber crystals.
What are they called?
Kyber crystals.
Kyber crystals. So this guy's been taking bodies. Really not much to it in terms of like, a story. It was very, traditional. Like, I guess you had like these samurai coming into the city, sort of set, or into the small town, very feudal Japan-esque. And this wandering Ronin basically does battle with that group of people, mainly their leader, as the town resists the corrupt and evil samurai. It could be something out of Dororo, especially old school Dororo, the original one. There's a lot of like scenes like this, and the newer one too. And it was hard not to draw parallels, but this sort of silent, stoic badass and someone like Yakimaru. I thought I was going to hate it more than I do. I don't hate it, I just didn't like it visually. Now, I'm also watching The Dragon Prince right now, and I kind of came up with this sort of like slogan to summarize my feelings on it. It's like good despite being ugly.
Okay.
And that's how I feel about The Dragon Prince, and that's kind of how I feel about this. It had a lot of cool moments, visually kind of interesting, but it let itself down in places. I think this is a very good, very strong first installment because it's very like out there. There's not much in any realm of media these days that looks kind of like this, outside of maybe I said Batman Ninja. This doesn't look like your traditional anime at all, really. It does kind of look a little bit like JoJo's, I guess, the way the models kind of work. But yeah, like that's what let it down for me. And I think the fight could have been better, if I'm being honest.
The fight was really just, there wasn't actually that much fighting, if I'm honest. There were a couple cross lightsabers at the front. By the way, didn't like her umbrella lightsaber, whatever thing that was there.
I actually did kind of like it. I thought it was a nice little twist on lightsabers, and it was something kind of like, okay, here's something very traditionally Japanese mixed with Star Wars.
Sure.
Because you get that nice contrast at the beginning where you're like in a galaxy while you're in space, right? You get that classic Star Wars space shot, and it kind of pans down and you hit like feudal Japan with a bunch of like neon lights and droids, and I think I saw it as a Tusken Raider at one point.
There was a Tusken Raider, there was a Trandoshan, there was a bunch of, the Ugnaught was the person that was in charge of the little inn that he stayed at, or the tea shop, I guess. Yeah, there was a lot of strange things in it. It reminded me, actually, for a while, I forgot the company that did that, but there was a bunch of traditional where they did miniatures, like figurines. That was Star Wars reimagined during feudal Japan times with Darth Vader and a stormtrooper. It reminded me very much of that. Those figurines are amazing. If you have a lot of money, they're worth a lot of money nowadays. So those are always kind of cool things to do. Like I said, I was thrown a little bit by how much this is out there as a Star Wars fan, because already I'm kind of jerking. I was like, well, there's two Sith. Is this the rule of two? Is this, stuff? And I have to throw out those preconceptions that I have. I thought it was a little bit like The Mandalorian. I thought people who like The Mandalorian will probably like this, as it has that kind of Western feudal samurai kind of mix. It actually reminded me a little bit of Samurai Champloo in terms of some of the
I kind of wondered if the female Sith's hair was like an homage to Samurai Champloo. That was my guess on when she kind of revealed it. Like, I think there's a lot of like influences on the sleeve in this one, not just Akira Kurosawa, as they said in Tezuka. Right. Definitely, I think there was like a Samurai Champloo vibe to the whole thing. I think a good way to do this actually might be just to go like instant kind of like grades on 10. We're doing 10 minutes on them, so I figure like a kind of 10 out of 10 grading might work best on this one. I feel like it's a pretty good start in respect that I think it's like quite out there visually. I think it's a bit of a soft introduction for your non-anime Star Wars fan.
Sure.
Because it's like so sort of stylized, and it's kind of like not a million miles away from something you'd see like in Kill Bill Part 1 or like the Animatrix or something like that. It kind of fits in with the more like casual late 90s, early 2000s anime fan who might like watch the old the odd anime like Berserk or something like Ghost in the Shell and stuff like that.
Right.
Having something like this, which is very like stylized but very like safe in the same respect.
Yeah,
it's not
true.
like too anime.
Yeah.
As weird as that sounds, considering like the influences that it has.
Yeah, it didn't have any really anime tropes. It had more Star Wars tropes than it did anime tropes.
It didn't really have any beats either in terms of the story.
Didn't.
Like there was a couple of cool illusions, and I think there's like the guts of a cool story here, like this wandering Ronin. But they didn't really give us enough that it felt anyway sort of complete. It sort of was like a little kind of like peek into the window of something that could be quite greater in terms of like the story. I don't think we'll ever see more of this story again. I think that it was what it was, like a single episode of some sort of episodic wandering Ronin adventure. Out of 10 though, I think I would land probably on a 5. Didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. So as a bar setter, I think 5 is a nice place to start. And kind of like trending upwards though. Like I'm more optimistic about the rest of them now after seeing this, because there was like, as choppy as it was in places, there was still like some nice little production touches.
All right, I'm actually almost the exact opposite in terms of my expectations are going a little bit down for some reason. I always like it when people are being a Legends fan, when people are a little bit pay some fidelity, even if they're not necessarily canon stories. So it's not bad. There were some parts I liked, but overall, I'm going to give it like a 4, or maybe like a 5, but trending downwards. And we'll see what it. If these get better or continue, or see what happens. I will say, for all the fans that are screaming out there, I'm sure Yata is aware that Kurosawa Lucas has paid a lot of homage, and that Star Wars was, let's say, heavily influenced by Kurosawa's early work.
There you go. And we had 29 seconds to spare.
Wow.
We were worried about this 10 minutes that it might be hard to fill and or hard to keep it within 10 minutes. We did it. We got a little bit of time to spare. So what we're going to do now is we're going to hop out of it again, and we're going to go into episode 2, which is Tatooine Rhapsody, and that is from Studio Colorido. So we will see you when we finish that one. And we are back, and that was Tatooine Rhapsody. The egg timer starts, and yep, episode 2 is in the bag. Quite a difference from episode 1.
Indeed.
All right, go on. Hit me with your thoughts.
Well, it's definitely more of that like chibi style. I would say it's very kid friendly. Like all ages can watch that and appreciate it. I actually didn't hate it as much as I thought I was going to at the start. The voice acting cast was great for the English one. They got Tamu Morrison, who plays Boba Fett in The Mandalorian, and who plays Jango Fett in the movies and the Clone Troopers. So that was a great get for them. The music is a little bit, basic, I guess, or generic to some degree. I'm not sure I like the art style again. Obviously, I feel like this is more made for kids, but I didn't hate it. I didn't like it. I didn't hate it. I thought it would play a little bit better in the world that of Star Wars. It just didn't feel like something with a Star Wars paint job slapped on it. So, okay, what'd you think?
This felt kind of like a fan edit in respect that like it felt like whole chunks of story were just chopped out. We got like certain parts, but my biggest issue with this one was the fact that the music wasn't very good.
No.
It was supposed to be like this sort of what you said. You kind of sold to me as like a rock opera before we started.
That's what it was described to me as.
We got like one lame song. It was kind of like a mix between like early U2 with like some crappy punk music, like first phase punk. Visuals are okay, but there were some issues. Again, not to like harp on the CG, but the ship was ugly when it was moving, and then there was like this shot of like the stands around, I guess, where they're gonna have pod races and stuff like that.
Yeah, Tatooine.
That's kind of like not great. There was literally like no animation with some of the backgrounds whatsoever. Like they didn't even attempt to animate the backgrounds at all, which is fine. Like if the art was really good, but it wasn't. It was crowd, right? Like you got to put a little bit of effort into the crowds. I don't know, like I thought it looked okay in terms of like it was visually quite like bright and colorful, and it kind of like held your attention. Tonally, it was like just whiplash from the first one. So watching these back to back, it felt like kind of jarring.
It did.
When you're coming from that first one where you're like, you know, it's quite dark and it's quite like, I guess, more mature in terms of like its audience rating. This one definitely felt like it had that hard U attached to it. This is Studio Colorido, which is, I guess, Burn the Witch was their last big thing, but they're more of like a movie studio. They had like Penguin Highway and Whisker Away. I actually really liked Whisker Away, and I've heard good things about Penguin Highway. Like the production quality was there in terms of like the hand-drawn animation. CG not great, didn't integrate well whatsoever. And then as far as the story goes, like what story? I guess what I could pick up is that this kid was like a youngling or something like that. Is that what they're called? Like a young Jedi or something like that?
Yeah, it looked like he escaped from the clones from Order 66. So that's what he was running from at the beginning, from Anakin's destruction of the temple.
So this was post like the rise of the Empire, I guess?
Yeah.
Okay. Other than that, though, you had these couple of like the band itself was kind of like nothing characters, and there was no personality to them whatsoever outside of like their visual design. So we had like one sort of like, can you say sexy droid?
Sure.
And then we had like, I don't know, like a tiefling or some sort of demon that had like 3 heads. I don't know if that's like a canonical
I've
alien.
never heard about it before.
His name was Lan. I did like that though. I thought that was really nice. And then we had, I guess, what are those called? Huts?
He's a hut.
Yeah, okay. And he looked ridiculous. Like straight out of like Saturday morning cartoons.
He did a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't like this one very much. I'm not going to lie. I think this is actually a step down from what we got beforehand. Mainly because it just felt like very disjointed. It just like there was a couple of attempts at emotional beats, but it had no time to sort of let it marinate. And it really went from like, okay, so we have this conflict. Like I was expecting some sort of like escape heist. Like we're gonna free, I think his name was Guy.
Yep.
And then we're gonna like get the band back together and we're gonna travel across the universe. Next thing you know, it's like literally cuts from like this very like dour scene in the rain where he sort of walks out and it looks like he's going through things to, hey, we made a deal with Jabba, we get to play one more song. And I was like, wait, what? That was very like quick. Now, granted, they are shorts and you know, there's gonna be parts where you have to sort of fill in the gaps yourself, but this was definitely like, okay, gee, you're not even attempting to like have a scene there, like just a minute of just showing up at like Django at the Jabba's mansion of sloth and just have the conversation or something. I guess cool things. We got to see Boba Fett. I think it was Boba Fett, right?
Boba Fett.
Yeah. So our first Mandalorian. He's a Mandalorian, right? Or is he the clone, or what is he?
Okay, that's a complicated question. Let's just say he's Mandalorian-esque.
Okay. So Diet Mandalorian shows up. We got to see his ship. I remember that from the second Star Wars movie.
Slave One, The Empire Strikes Back.
So that was cool.
Actually, there was quite a few kind of in this one, which is why I gave a little bit of a tick up. There's a lot of kind of like Easter egg kind of things. Like, for example, there are shots of the Jizz Whalers, which is the Bith band from the first movie that played in the bar.
Well, I was going to ask you about those guys. Yeah. So now we have, well, not canonically, but we sort of have 2 musical acts in the Star Wars universe. Which one of these musical acts are we like rooting for here? Is it the Gee Whalers or whatever they're called?
Yeah.
Jizz Whalers?
Well, yeah, that's their name because they play jizz, which is a form of like, it's basically like light jazz. They always play.
Is jizz slang in the US for cum?
Yes.
Okay.
This was pre all of that. This is 1970s.
Pre-jizz.
Yeah.
Nobody was jizzing in the 70s.
Nobody was jizzing in the 70s.
Yeah, like, I didn't notice them, honestly. That must have been one of those things that went over my head. Yeah, I could relate to the kind of crappy show with a couple of people tapping their feet. I don't know, man. I just didn't like the music. I think like a good banging song would have really done wonders for this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we didn't get that. For a second, I was like, are we getting some like Daft Punk here? Like kind of, what does he call that? Galaxy, what was it? You know that Daft Punk album where they just released a bunch of anime videos?
Oh, yeah.
Interstellar 66 something or other. I can't remember what it's called. But
whatever it was.
Yeah,
there was a whole movie.
Yeah, I thought maybe we were getting a bit of that. We weren't. Yeah, I was kind of waiting for this one to be over, which is terrible because it's very, very short as it is. Like that, what was that? That must have been like less than 10 minutes, right?
No, I think it was like 12 or something.
Okay.
12.
12 minutes, yeah. So I don't know why it felt like a long 12 too long 12 minutes. It's mainly because I didn't enjoy it very much at all, outside of like some cutesy character design. Kind of chibi-esque.
Yeah.
It felt more like something you'd see in a video game, like a JRPG or something like that, more so than an anime.
A little bit.
I don't know if it was just because the characters were kind of stunted. They had that sort of like Made in Abyss kind of style.
A little bit, but way worse.
Yeah, which is odd because Kinema Citrus, who did Made in Abyss, are coming up at some point on this. This is not Kinema Citrus. It could have been. You could have fooled me, except for the crappy background animation, which Kinema Citrus never have. They're like awesome backgrounds. Okay, for score for this one, I'm gonna go 3.5.
All right. I mean, I liked it a little bit more. I also thought as soon as it came on, like if you're a Star Wars fan, you have to put up with a whole bunch of kids stuff. I mean, to be honest, Star Wars is really designed for kids. And you neckbeards like me out there, we have to accept that at some point. So, I mean, it was okay. For some reason, I like this better than the first one. I don't know if the first one was just like so like I was expecting something more or whatever. This one for me, I would say is a 4.5-ish, a 4. Not great, but okay. I could see it being very watchable if you had kids in the room or something like that. The first one, I don't think kids would really like or even get scared by, but you could show this to all ages, which is very much with the Star Wars brand. So
yeah, it got kind of savage there. Like we're trying to like talk up a 4 out of 10.
Yeah, I know. You try your best.
We're not doing mal scores here. Like 4 basically means it's like the worst thing ever. I think even Diabolic Lovers has higher than a 4. We're gonna go for our like tough but fair scores. It's probably gonna be no 10s because we're gonna go for figure skating rules where 10 is impossible. But
I know the next one is one of the hype ones. So.
Yeah, so the next one is actually from Studio Trigger, and it is titled The Twins. So we're excited for that. We're going to go check it out now, and we'll be back to talk about the twins. All right, that was Star Wars Visions Episode 3, The Twins, produced by Studio Trigger.
Really?
It certainly
you
was.
think that was from Studio Trigger?
It was pure Trigger. It was Imaishi as well, who you can definitely see his hand in this one. This was like Premiere Light, definitely like third wave Trigger, which is, by that I mean it's like it's got that sort of B&A Premiere sort of aesthetic, very very much like Premiere actually in terms of character design, lights, a lot of blues, a lot of reds. It's Trigger, so it looked very good. I would say probably the best of the 3 in terms of animation quality so far. No real issues with the CG. It looked pretty good. Hand-drawn animation was interesting. I don't think it's Trigger's best work, but I don't think it was bad at all. I actually kind of liked a lot of moments of it. I thought there was a lot of cool like shots. A couple that stuck out to me, I guess, early on would have been when her helmet, the evil Sith twin, her helmet kind of like exploded off. It was really well shot. There was about half a dozen moments where I was like kind of like silently nodding. Story was a bit, again, I know it's for kids, so I'll cut some slack, but it was a little bit like on the nose, a little bit kind of cheesy. Maybe even more so than the second one. Again, it's like the first one, the duel is so like out of place with the 2 following pieces. It's just like this radically different one, and using that as like the introduction really kind of almost set like a false statement of intent. I don't know, I was expecting more like, I don't know, like a more grave gravitas in the tone of the things. Like it was cool. Again, like story was kind of like threadbare. Even me, who doesn't know that much about Star Wars, is like, man, there's no way this ever could have been anything close to canon. They're just going whatever they want. Full anime, I guess, in terms of like whatever the hell we want to do. Rule it, cool it. And, right. Trigger gets to like, in a playground like that, Trigger would theoretically excel because they got so much room to like kind of just go nuts. And they did. What do you think?
Yeah, this is definitely Trigger. It had some really cool moments. It had some moments that I was like, what is going on? Like the lightsaber that was like multicolored and then it comes down to 1. The idea that the hyperspace jump was going to push him past it. I'm like, that's not how hyperspace works. And like it split the Star Destroyer, which is, by the way, going to make a lot of people angry because that was the thing that got a lot of people really angry about The Last Jedi. So, But I kind of like you. There are some points, especially at the beginning, I was a little bit. I didn't love the droids, to be honest, and I didn't like the stormtroopers. They looked like they were almost. I mean, it's Trigger, but like they were almost penciled in. I mean, they're definitely saving their budget for the big fight at the end. But it's Trigger. It's just like you kind of have to get caught up in the pure, kind of momentum, the animation, the kind of energy of it just kind of like whisk you away, which I have to say the other two didn't have, definitely did not have that energy, and they just dumped everything into this one little kind of duel that happened. So, like you, I mean, the thing that everybody compares this to is the Animatrix, right? Which was the Matrix's version of this. But this is, you can see where it's Star Wars in that they're definitely aiming younger, where the Matrix was definitely aimed for a more older audience. Who knows going forward, but it definitely looks like they're trying to make sure that this is at least watchable to the vast majority of all audiences. So, I mean, that's what Star Wars is, right? It's a mass market appeal, so you have to kind of take that with it. But I enjoyed it at least somewhat more than the other two, I have to say, even though it is a little bit batshit crazy at parts.
You swore. All right, so what do you think of Ame's 6 wielding? So I guess like General Grievous kind of impressed us all with 4.
He had 4.
And Darth Maul impressed us with 2. Ame was like, well, I can up that. I can go 6 full-on Killer Bee here and wielding 6 lightsabers at one point. That was interesting. I don't think they handled that well in terms of like fight choreography. I don't think they handled that as well as they could have.
No.
That could have been way more impressive.
It could have.
Not that it was, like visually it was quite impressive, but in terms of like a fight mechanic, it didn't really play into the actual like beats of the fight itself. References being references, I did pick up on one that I thought was pretty cool. Early on when we were first introduced to Kare, I think we got a little nod there to that famous hallway scene with Darth Vader when he sort of like enters the corridor and just like bodies everybody in the corridor.
The light from Rogue One.
Yeah, the lights were all red and he just dropped a bunch of bodies, and as he was leaving you got that shot of all of the what do you call them, stormtroopers just sort of lying there on the floor.
Tatters.
It's very similar to the last shot in that hallway scene. And it's Trigger, they always handle references about as well as they can.
This one had a lot of like references, like to be or not to be, try, do not try. There was a lot of those kind of like Star Wars nuggets in here.
There was one moment I think I tilted and rolled my eyes when he said he's going to a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, I know. I think we both rolled our eyes at that one.
Pure, unadulterated lame. But I'll forgive them because this was pretty comfortably my favorite of the 3 so far. Now, am I saying it's good? No, not yet. I don't think we've hit good quite yet.
I don't think so either.
I would hope this is not the sort of
pinnacle
zenith of like what we're getting here. But as far as the first 3 go, we got a good like kind of smorgasbord in terms of like what we've got so far. Like tonally 2 and 3 are kind of closer. This one is somewhere between the 2 of them. It had that kind of like hokiness of like Star Wars in terms of like, believe in yourself and hope and all that stuff. But it like packed more of a punch, like a literal punch in terms of like how the actual duel. Like if I compared this fight to the fight in the first one, the actual duel, I way prefer this one. A couple of cool visual moments, like again, just Trigger being Trigger, like whatever makes it work, really cool at all. So I'm gonna hop up to a 6 on this one. But a good 6, like 6, possibly a 7, but I'm gonna stick at a 6. I enjoyed it. It was the longest of the 3 episodes so far, but it didn't feel long. It felt just right. It didn't feel rushed. And I guess a weakness, I would say, there was a lot of exposition for a 16-minute short, though.
A bit.
There was at least, there was 2 prolonged exposition sort of like setups. One for him explaining like how he's going to defeat the sister and get the suit off her, and the sister introducing the whole kind of like shtick between these 2 sisters,
or whatever it is.
What did you think of the twin Star Destroyers? Is that a thing, or is that?
It's not a thing. It was designed for this. I mean, the twins have been done before in Legends. So Jaina and Jason, which
well, I don't know Jaina and Jason.
Okay. So if you're listening here, Jaina and Jason were since it's not canon anymore, since Disney took over. Jay and Jason were Han and Leia's.
There's a fanfic there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sure. Children, and Jason eventually turns to the dark side, and Jaina has to kill him. So this is not like brand new territory for Star Wars. That being said, just the raw energy that Trigger brings to the kind of, I felt it kind of brought this over, where the first one was a lot of meditation and cool things and kind of like a samurai cool aesthetic. This one was just madness, and it's Trigger, so it's got to take place in outer space, and somebody's got to have some kind of massive galactic overcharging. My one thing I will say is that if you have never seen anime, these first three are pretty good, like charute board of anime, you might want to say, and that you got three very distinct styles and visions that aren't, so far, none of them have been anything remotely like the other.
Yeah. So you got a grade for it?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 6. I don't think it's a strong 7 still. I don't know what I'm expecting with 15, 16 minutes, but I'm expecting something more, and so far I haven't got it, but this one is by far my favorite of the three.
Okay, so one little thing, aside to the growing maturity of Trigger, now this might have been the fact that Star Wars were like, and Disney were like, tone it down. But if this was back in the halcyon days of Space Patrol Lulico or Kill la Kill, when her thing got blown up, her whole outfit would have went if that was Kill la Kill. Gone. They've definitely matured. This is definitely more BNA Promare style than Kill la Kill. Okay, we got 30 seconds left. This was the one that was easiest to talk about for sure. Up next is from Kinema Citrus. This is the one I'm probably most excited for. It's The Village Bride. We're going to see you on the other side of this. And then we completed episode 4, The Village Bride, from Studio Kinema Citrus. This is the longest of the 4 episodes so far, nearly a full episode in length, 17 muscular minutes. What do we think?
Well, I thought it was definitely the best story of all of the 4, right? In terms of there was a beginning, middle, end. It felt like a story. I was actually very impressed that they were able to fit as much story as they could within a 17 minutes or so, whatever it is. Good. I have to say the music was great. I really enjoyed the background music. I enjoyed the designs. Obviously, they were a little bit simplified, probably because of budgetary and time reasons. But I like the animation style, even if it was a little bit kind of, I guess simple would be the best word. Not bad, just it was very simplistic. And like I said, I like the character design. This one actually didn't feel too Star Wars-y to some degree. I mean, it had a Jedi, and it had a YT freighter, and it had the battle droids. But for the most part, they could have been replaced by almost anything. But that being said, it was definitely, in my opinion, the best of the stories so far.
I think this is hands down the best one so far. Not even close. This, for me, was how to do the first one correctly. You know what I mean? You had the sort of similar sort of premise in the fact that you had this sort of stranger coming into a city, into a town that's being terrorized by a nefarious group, and they intervene to aid the village.
Right.
But this one, I cared about the characters because there actually was characters. But the character design was actually really, really cool. This one's from Kinema Citrus, so you could see a lot of Made in Abyss kind of stamped all over this one. The director of this one, let me get his name really quickly, Hidetoshi Heiga, did 3 episodes of Made in Abyss, and I'm pretty certain that OST was Kevin Penkin.
Maybe.
That sounded up his alleyway. He does pretty much exclusively work for Kinema Citrus anyway, with Shield Hero and Made in Abyss, and now this. I'm guessing that he did the soundtrack. It really was up his alleyway. First time I heard a soundtrack that was actually oh yeah, I could bop this. It's very soothing, very earthy. I
thought very Enya-ish.
Yeah, because the other 3 had been very oh, that's just the Star Wars music, right? Which is fine. It's good. It's iconic. You know what I mean? But this was kind of fresh. So there was a couple of different kind of things going on in my mind. Obviously, Made in Abyss was in there as well because of the fact that the people who made it. I was also getting kind of Pokemon Twilight Wings vibes in terms of the animation style, which is a good thing. It is kind of stripped down and simplified, but that I think worked for it. Also, kind of wouldn't have been surprised if someone said, "Oh, this is actually a Studio Ghibli attempt at Star Wars." There was Ghibli elements to it, it's not a million miles away from something like Princess Mononoke or something like that.
Nope.
I actually really, really enjoyed this one. I could watch more of this. If this was like a feature-length movie with this character, this yellow lightsaber lady.
The F, I think it's F in the credits.
Yeah, that was like, she was an interesting character. She definitely gave more to me than our nameless Ronin from episode 1.
Right.
Yeah, I gotta say, I really enjoyed this one. Easily my favorite one so far. Maybe like not to the same like visual like height of the Trigger one.
Sure.
But in terms of like story, it was tasteful. It was actually interesting.
Yeah.
I thought the whole like little bit of the world that we got was kind of like fascinating. Kind of a nice little meld of like traditional kind of Japanese fantasy in anime with the Star Wars universe. It was like a tasteful amount of Star Wars, I'll say.
Less the better for you.
No, like I think because the Trigger one was quite heavy on the Star Wars stuff, right? Like you had like
Sure.
Star Destroyers and Darkseid and all that stuff. But this one, I don't think needed it.
Nope.
You know what I mean? It kind of, again, it could have, like you said, it could have been its own sort of thing. Sans the Star Wars, and it would have probably just been as good. Very impressed by Kingdom of Citrus. If I had to put money down at the beginning, like which studio I thought might hit it out of the park, they would have definitely been on the short list.
Sure.
Probably between them, Sainsaru, and probably Trigger. Now, haven't seen what Trigger put out there and what Kingdom of Citrus put out there. I would definitely give the nod to Kingdom of Citrus so far.
There is another Trigger one coming, so.
Okay. I would love if there was literally another one of these. Like, if
Yeah.
we could sell that character again, I could totally watch another one of hers, but I don't think that's the case. Who knows, though? We might be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what, if things do well, how much, they could continue. Yeah, this was definitely the most interesting of the worlds. I thought it was very kind of interesting to be honest, it didn't really feel like Star Wars to me in terms of the themes and stuff like that. Because Star Wars has never been big on not really big on the nature. It's more been on the sci-fi rather than the fantasy, even though it's not obviously hard sci-fi. But that being said, like you, I think most of your positive things I thought were interesting. I like the people design, the character design. I want to know more. Even her sister had a little bit of personality to her, which you can't say about like a lot of the side characters from the other, even if there weren't side characters. The droid sounded good. I like the idea of the Separatist rather than the Empire. That to me was a very good thing. I think that prequel area is less mined than the Empire Jedi era. So for me, that's a really kind of interesting thing of, these bands took over, a Separatist battle droid and basically decided to strip the planet, which, happens all the time in Star Wars. So I thought that was very good. It's definitely the best of the story. I'll give my grade right now. I'm going to say 8 out of 10. It loses a little bit for me for not really being Star Wars. And I think some of the... I really didn't like the battle at the end, to be honest. It was over too quickly. But, they have a runtime limit. So I'm not blaming them. But it's by far, it's the best of the 4 or 5.
Yeah, I'm going to go 8 as well. I guess comically, if I want to poke a little hole at it, a little jab, maybe it was, let's replace all the little teddy bears from, is it Endor?
Yeah, Ewoks.
Ewoks from Return of the Jedi, and let's make them humans. And, there was an idea of our sort of natural paradise getting invaded by these kind of, evil forces or whatever. I thought the character design of the villain was pretty good. Could have used more of him possibly, but then again, 17 minutes,
right.
There's only so much you can do. And definitely felt like there was more of more of a focus on creating a sort of sympathetic kind of world and making it seem kind of lived in. And they did a good job in 17 minutes, I gotta say. So I'm gonna go with you, 8 out of 10. Thought it was thoroughly enjoyable. That 17 minutes zipped by. No more Kingdom of Citrus, unfortunately. We have 1 more Trigger, 2 more Sainsaru. Next is Production IG. So excited because they are
the biggest probably name. Well, I mean Trigger, but
Trigger Sainsaru. But IG,
IG's
Run with the
some...
Wind, Haikyuu. Also lots of other anime. IG a big time studio. So going to see what they're doing. Interesting title. Already got my curiosity up with The Ninth Jedi. So we're gonna hop into that now, and we'll be back on the other side of this. And we have completed the Night of the Jedi. Production IG enters the fray with the longest one yet.
Indeed.
22 minutes, just shy of 22 minutes. Thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think this is the most traditional anime of the ones we've seen that I'm like, okay, yeah, this is like it's almost like the first episode of like an anime series or whatever that you might watch. It's okay. I mean, there's one of my pet peeves in here, Star Wars fans. If you're an anime fan, you're going to have to hold on a little bit for this rant. In that not all dark Jedi are Sith and not all light Jedi are Jedi. So you can be a light user and not be a Jedi, and you can be a dark user and not be a Sith. They are orders within... They are the structures within the light and dark side. Anyway, beyond that, I thought the things I liked about this, I guess I would say, is it did have a complete story, which some of them didn't. So this one has obviously more runtime, so it had more of a complete story. It felt much more like a normal anime episode. I enjoyed the droid design. I thought that's always fun because you can kind of go a little bit wonky with it. And that anime really, especially Japanese productions, have done very well with mecha, right? In their own kind of, mechanized drawings or ideas or something like that. So applied to droids in Star Wars, I thought that was pretty good. The twist was okay. I actually didn't see the twist coming. I thought the twist was going to be that the Margrave was bad. It wasn't. So overall, it's not bad. I don't think I like it as much as I liked the last one. But the animation was fine for the most part. I liked the speeder chase through the forest and the ice lake. I liked the droid designs. Some things I didn't like. It was a little cheesy in parts. I think the thing at the beginning we both said should have been a narrator, like the Flash Gordon Star Wars crawl, like across the screen. I think that would have been a better way of, rather than just having a narrator talk over it. It didn't end super great. The ship design was a little bit meh. But I did like the droids. And I did overall. So it's not bad. What did you think?
This is probably my second favorite of the 5 so far. I think it really helped the fact that it had sort of a story that almost felt like appropriately lengthy. The Cara was a pretty interesting heroine, because it sort of had it set up early on that Ethan was being sort of played as the hero of the story, but it was Cara. Interesting to see her sort of grapple with like becoming a Force user, I guess. Animation was good. The CG was dreadful. I gotta say, this is definitely the ropiest one so far. And it opens in a couple of like space shots with the spaceships and the floating, I don't know, was like temple. It looked bad. Like, no excuses. It just looked bad. But once you got beyond that, and once you actually got to the characters itself and the actual action, it was pretty good. Story was engaging. I liked the kind of the whole like story itself. I
was kind of the twist.
I don't know. It was fine. I didn't think it was that much of a twist because, well, no, the twist when they all revealed that they were red lightsaber wielders. That kind of like, I like that part. Revealing the Margrave was actually, a good guy, wasn't that much of a twist because he was so coded as like being a villain that you kind of, it would have been a bit too obvious if he was actually a villain. He was like robot face and red eyes. Like, this is just so, he's so coded that way. There had to be some sort of twist. The only thing that was kind of frustrating is the fact that it ended. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where the previous one, The Bride, ended like kind of conclusively, as did most of the other ones. This one very much felt like the beginning of something and not the end of something. It felt like a pilot or a first episode.
It did.
And I would happily see more. I would be curious to see how Cara and the Margrave and Ethan and the other guy, the big tall guy, we don't give him a name, he was wielding a purple lightsaber.
Rowan whatever it is. The dog looking.
I would like to see them pull a Princess Leia heist and try and rescue her from these anti-Jedi forces or whatever, hunters. I guess one kind of question that kind of threw me was when Cara was getting chased, the guy that was chasing her, the Jedi hunter, said that the Force is strong with her. Like, is that something people are able to do? or is he a force wielder as well? Like, how is he able to recognize that she is strong in the force?
I mean, it could be that he was a force wielder or like somebody, because there's different levels, right? Like maybe you're not strong enough to be a Jedi or a Sith, but you're able to recognize it. It also could be that she was driving her speeder backwards by deflecting his shots.
Yeah.
Which would be a pretty good indication that she probably had some abilities beyond normal girl.
Yeah, she definitely did. She was kind of like OP,
even
though she kind of started out I felt like she was kind of placed in the sort of traditional like damsel in distress role.
A little bit.
And I liked the kind of twist on that and having her be the sort of active kind of badass and Ethan being sort of quasi useless, where I would have thought it might have been the other way around. It was refreshing having that kind of like twist on things. Yeah, so overall with this one, it's definitely not like the Bride quality, and there are issues with the animation, and I didn't actually love the style, the animation style itself. It was a little bit like dated almost. Like,
yeah, it felt like a maybe like 10 years ago, kind of like a. But that's why I said it felt like to me like a traditional anime kind of like one when I was coming. Well, maybe not when I was coming up, but one that we watched a lot, like Erased or
when I was coming up. Yeah, the eyes got me like Serial Experiment Lane eyes for some reason, which really threw me. The shading as well was like pure early 2000s, but in saying that, it was nice, refreshing change. Didn't expect it, and not in a bad way. It wasn't an unpleasant surprise. It was just a surprise. The CG though was pretty it looked like it looked like something from the 90s. It was I can't believe how bad it was. In saying that though, copy and paste what I said before. Okay, it's not actively detracting from the whole experience too much. So all that said, all that aside, all that taken into consideration, I will throw it a 7.
That's what I would have rated it too. I also like the fact that she wore her helmet while she was riding her scooter. So
responsible
safety
driver.
first. And like I said, I enjoyed the droid design. I also agree with you on almost everything. The twist with the red lightsabers was interesting. I thought the character design of the Jedi Hunters was kind of somewhat interesting as well. But like I said, it wasn't great. It did definitely felt like a pilot episode of like a normal anime. But overall, I enjoyed it. Probably not as much as, like you said, The Bride, but not bad. By the way, the 9th Jedi, I think, if you're not understanding, there are 9 Jedi on the Council. So technically, you would need 9 Jedi to form the Jedi Council. That's why the 9th Jedi thing comes in case you were wondering.
I was not wondering, but thanks for telling me. Okay, so the next one's kind of interesting. It's from Science Saru, which is Misaki Yasa's studio. Also now Naoko Yamada's studio. And this is also directed by a non-Japanese director. This is by a guy called Abel Gongora, who is Spanish.
Okay.
So this is going to be interesting because Science Saru are definitely one of the more like out there studios in terms of like production. Like if you think of like Keep Your Hands Off the Motion Picture Club or like Devilman Crybaby and like some of the weird movies that Yuasa's put together, like this could be awesome. It could be tonally like a lot more adventurous than the other ones. I kind of like. I'm going to set the bar high with this one. I kind of need to be impressed by this one.
All right.
Because the floor here is going to be like aided with the extra weight of anticipation. So let's see what we have with Star Wars Visions Episode 6. TOB1. Okay.
It's probably a droid name.
It screams droid name, yes.
It certainly does.
All right, that was episode 6, I believe. That was Toby, but it's definitely not called Toby.
It's TOBI.
TOBI,
Yeah.
Toby. What'd you think?
Well, I was going to ask you what you think, because I've been going first for a while, so I wanted to know what you thought.
Okay, I think this might be the best one we've seen so far.
Really?
Yeah. Okay, tonally, it's like way more pulled back in terms of like the last couple have been a little bit more mature, I would say. This one is kind of like probably the most aimed towards a younger audience, I would say. It's very Astro Boy. It's very cutesy. It's very like kids show.
Yep.
Even the length of it is a good 13 minutes. That's a good like length for a kids show. But they just killed it. Like every aspect of it was just really, really well done. The animation was excellent for what it is. I think they basically landed everything that they wanted to land. They had a certain like tone. They had a certain style, and they just killed it. It was very creative. There's some beautiful shots. the way they kind of use camera angles, and like they did a lot of like turning and spinning, like rotoscoping, I guess you could and it was just fantastic. I was really, really impressed by this one. Now, in terms of like story, it would have been my favorite one, no, but in terms of like the production and where they went with it, I think they killed it. Very, very impressive. This might be the most impressive one I've seen so far. It was very, very well put together. I thought it was excellent.
Well, I think it definitely has its own vision. See what I did there? And it had that kind of, like, I actually thought while watching it, it had that Astro Boy, obviously, but I actually thought more of like a European, like Tintin, or maybe even something like The Little Prince. It had that kind of European flavored animation, or like I don't know exactly what I would call it, but it definitely did not strike me as kind of the normal run-of-the-mill animation style. For the one thing I did like is they actually used real ships. They didn't make up their own ships. So, for example, the Sith Inquisitor was driving a TIE. I want to call it a TIE shuttle. It's the one from the new game. And then he had a the Womp Rat that Luke flew in the deleted scenes from the first movie. So that was kind of interesting. My two things back, I really didn't dig. I thought it moved very fast. It was obviously more kid style or more of their own vision. I thought it was executed well for their vision. It just didn't really appeal to me. I didn't particularly like the idea. Also, in Star Wars, droids don't have an attachment to the Force because they're creative. They're not really alive. So that was a little bit of a for me. It just didn't line up. Also, one of the things I'm going to say for the entire series is I kind of wish they would get away from Jedi and Sith. One of the things that makes Star Wars so amazing is that shows like The Mandalorian, or shows like even Rebels, and to some degree can get away from that a little bit, and I kind of wished that would happen. We still got 3 more, so who knows, but it was interesting. I don't think it was the worst one by far. It just, what I would say, wouldn't be for me. It struck me as a very kind of an art school kind of style, and if you've been on this podcast for any length of time, you know that art is not really my thing. So it wasn't bad, but it just wasn't my jam.
Well, I guess we finally diverged on this one. Who knew that this little QC one was going to be the one that tore us apart? I couldn't disagree more. I thought it was fantastic. So theory is that he was made from the Kyber crystal.
No, I just think the Kyber crystal kind of powered him.
Yeah, that doesn't mean he's like made it, right? That's like it was built around it.
Right.
I guess that's how they got around him being a Jedi.
Well, yeah, I don't know, like, droids aren't supposed to be able to touch the Force, so I don't know exactly how they got around it.
Yeah, well, I guess if he's like, his core is the crystal itself, I guess, I don't know, it's like...
Yeah,
it's hard to know, especially as a person who's not versed in the lore of it, and especially when they're getting quite like creative with their license in terms of like what they can and can't do. Yeah, it's weird that, I don't know, it's like, I just really, really was captivated by this one, and I didn't think I would be, because when it first like came on, it was very like, oh, here we go, this is just gonna be Astro Boy. But just, I was so impressed by like all of the shot composition. In terms of a fight, actually, I thought that was one of the better fights in terms of choreography. I could like actually had like a bit of decent choreography when it comes to like the lightsaber battles, because most of the fights have either been like bombastic kind of like explosion fests, like
the twins,
the trigger one, the twins, yeah, or kind of underwhelming like the duel. Right. This one actually had like a bit of hand-to-hand combat, a bit of like you know, the disparity in size and power kind of played into it. And also I thought the droid designs were very, very cute, and like in a good way, like in a minion way, in a way that you could sell like those droids, you know what I mean, as like plushies or something like that.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it had a lot of potential. Like, I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
No,
but it's like the previous one, but the Ninth Jedi. This one felt like it had life beyond just the thing that like this Vision's like mini, right? Like there's something greater to this one. It could be like its own sort of short series where you have like a 10-minute episode every week or every couple of weeks, and I think it was great. Science Arrow, there was a lot of pressure on there. The weight of expectations was strong, and for me at least, you killed it. Now, tonally, I said it's not my cup of tea, but I just loved how creative it was, and it's like I was there for the art. So, grading is grading. I'm going to say 8.5.
All right, I'm obviously going to disagree. Like I said, I don't think it was the worst one. It was more about, I really feel like it was either the art kind of got you or didn't appeal to you in the sign in a way. It just wasn't my cup of tea, but overall it wasn't the worst one. I'm going to give it a solid 5.5.
All right, we're moving on to the second trigger joint in this little production. It is The Elder. It is episode 7. Let's get to it. Well, there we have it. Episode 7, The Master. Interesting.
Master or The Elder?
Oh, is it? I thought it was The Master.
The Elder.
The Elder. Okay, The Elder. Well, that was not what I expected from Studio Trigger.
They can't all be winners, is what I thought.
It was definitely it's kind of like a retro Western style. Like something you could see in the early 2000s, but like not from Japan. You know what I mean? Did I like it? I don't know. Did you like it?
Not really. It struck me as more of a Western animation style, like that high pencil count kind of, what I'm talking about. Like when it first came on the screen, I was like, this kind of looks like Avatar, or some of the high quality kind of like shows that came out in America that are designed for kids. My big knock on this one is the fact that the voice acting, we're watching the English one, was really bad. I felt it was really stale. I mean, David Harbour does the older guy, and he just sounds like he's speaking while he's on Xanax. And I just didn't appreciate the voice acting. He didn't sell it to me. If anything, it took me out of it. I also didn't I think Dan should have died. Now this is a kid's show, so, Dan can't die. But it just struck me as half measure on that one. And overall, I wasn't too impressed. It's not the worst one, I don't think. And there were things I liked about it. I actually liked the actual duel, was kind of interesting in itself, but the build-up was too long. This is the one of the few ones that, it's only 15 minutes or so. And I felt like it could have been a little shorter, actually. So, like I said, not really my thing in this case.
Yeah, I don't know. This one's probably the most forgettable of all of them. Sure. I thought the katana take on the lightsaber was pretty interesting, I guess. But yeah, the fact that he didn't kill Dan was kind of implausible, I guess, for this mysterious and ancient evil, but not evil enough to actually kill this Padawan or whatever he was. Yeah, I don't know. It just felt very like a short that you'd see in some sort of college graduation project or something like that. Yeah,
maybe, except for better animation quality.
Yeah, I thought the movement was a bit choppy. Mm-hmm. The fact also the NPC non-voices, you just these random shots of children or villagers, and they wouldn't even give them a voice. It just felt kind of cheap, I guess, in the production value. Not what I expected from Trigger at all, though. I'll definitely give them kudos on subverting my expectations. That was not what I would expected from Trigger. Honestly, not too much to say about this one. A couple of faux philosophical musings.
Yeah.
I guess the sort of dialogue was probably the more interesting part of it. We got a couple of lessons and life lessons from the Master to Dan, or kind of tempestuous young Padawan. But I don't know if it was if I was there for it, really. I'm going to give this one 4.
Yeah, I don't think the lessons were all that great anyway. The one thing I'll say about it is this looks like it's in the High Republic era, which I'm wondering is that's Disney's new era that they're launching, which is set about 100 to 150 years before the first prequel. So I'm wondering if this was hey, we're launching this, can you give us something with it? I'm wondering if it's a tie-in or something like that. I don't know. But this one was definitely set in the pre-Empire, even prequel era. So I don't know if that does the things. I'm not going to give it a 4. I think that's a little low. I'm probably going to give it a 5. But I'm like you. I was unimpressed, especially since the last 2 or 3 have been at least pretty good.
I would have expected more from Studio Trigger, honestly.
Yeah.
I guess they kind of blew their
budget
wad when it came to the twins. All right, on to the next one. This is number 8. This is Lope and Ocho. I'm not going to lie, got expectations for this one.
Why?
So I'm very curious. I don't know. I just liked it the most from what I saw in the trailer.
Okay.
So it's Studio Gino who did like Golden Kamuy and Pet. That's really all they've done. So it's not really on a reputation thing. It's purely an intrigue based around the aesthetic from what I saw in the like brief clips we got in the trailer. So could be wrong, could be terrible, could be great, who knows.
There's a bunny girl, I guess, at some points, right? With some people.
So that's rock and roller. Lope and Ocho in the bag. Number 8. Well, that was something.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say up and down. That's my take on it so far. Every time it was just about to lose me or win me over, it would sort of like veer the other direction. And there were a couple of moments that were just like, ugh. Whoever the lady who played Ocho just was a big no for me.
Yeah.
Acting was kind of terrible. Now I will say that we're watching the English dub version of it. That's the only one we could get our hands on, and yeah, just a big fail. But this is the first one that really kind of bothered me. I know you said that the 7th one, the Elder, was not great either. I didn't have that much of a problem with that one, except for the fact that it was so deadpan. But this one it just felt very like speed racery, if you know what I mean. There was a lot of like, I'm talking really fast and dramatic, and we're just hopping from beats to beats to beats without really like kind of delivering any sort of emotional punch. Now I'll say that Lope, no complaints about her performance. I thought she was very, very competent to good. So yeah, she never took me out of it. It was mainly Ocho, and you know, the kind of just the lack of kind of like an emotional punch with her character and her performance. What did you think?
I kind of agree with you. I actually thought that there was it was like somebody spent all their money and time on the animation, because the animation, the art is gorgeously done. Like I actually would say in parts it was just in terms of if you freeze frame and look at the art, like there were some really great shots, I thought, in terms of just like high art production and stuff like that. But it just moved along really fast. It didn't have any emotional, like we were supposed to invest, like when Ocho, you know, does her eye color differently and joins the Empire. That's supposed to be a beat, but we don't really know anything about her besides she's like bratty. And anyway, so I felt like they dumped all the money and time on the animation and forgot to hire like a decent, like, you know, script supervisor or actress or whatever. So like there were things I liked about it, but I have to go looking for those things. Overall, I felt kind of like I'm not going to be invested in any of these people or time or kind of things. Also, that Star Destroyer CGI at the beginning was kind of janky. But anyway.
It seems to be the theme for Visions, just like wonky looking 3D
CGI
ships. Yeah, there was, on the highlight artistically, I would say there was like a 6 to 8 second sequence during the battle. Just before Ocho made her like departure.
Yep.
Her blasting off again kind of moment.
With her Samurai X.
That was awesome. There was like some really cool smears. They really elongated the body parts for like dramatic effect. Awesome. I was like solidly on like a setting for most of it. And then that like 8 second sequence was like possibly the best 8 seconds visually of the whole of Vision so far. It was super impressive.
I also like the initial beginning thing where she's jumping through the market. That also was very well done. It was clean. The animation was put in the background. There was awfully attention to detail. Like I said, I can't fault the art. It's just the rest of it.
I kind of wonder if Ocho is supposed to be like, or is sort of loosely based on the Lady Eboshi. I don't know if you've seen Princess Mononoke.
Yeah,
the lady who owned the bathhouse with the lepers.
Yeah, maybe.
And the guns, and like she was very like progress.
Sure.
And like you can kind of understand where she was coming from. And that's where I felt like they were kind of leading with Ocho. But then they kind of made her very like the other way,
right,
towards the back half. But like even her costume design in the beginning looked very Lady Eboshi, and then she became sort of like the Devil Wears Prada, like
right.
Miranda from the. I think her name is Miranda from the Devil Wears Prada. And it was just a bit like, oh, you kind of gone to the dark side, or not really the dark side, but she just went like too over the top, like denouncing her. She's not part of the family,
right?
All this kind of stuff. Like I think it would have made it more interesting if you could understand where she was coming from. Like she was doing this superficially to save her, what she perceived was the best way to save her like society and her world, right? She just had a different way of approaching it than the father. But when you turn her into a cackling mad woman at the end, you kind of like lose a lot of that, right? And I thought that was like, that kind of undermined the integrity of the story overall. In saying that though, I don't think it's like the worst offering, I think it's kind of just like mid-tier.
Yeah.
The art really does like help. It's like good. It's good. Not amazing. I don't think it's a top tier, top to bottom, but that battle sequence between Ocho and Lope, that there's like 8 to 10 seconds there. I'm sure I'll do the rounds on like the Sakuga forums and all that. That was super impressive. I can't like praise that particular sequence highly enough. And in terms of world design, like we get these brief kind of like windows, little glimpses into these places, these sort of like a lot of like Japanicized versions of like outer space. Like how many different variations of Japan can you have in space? If it was canon, apparently a lot, but because it's not canon, we could just assume it's just like different ones reskinned every time. This one visually might have been up there with the one from The Bride in terms of like worlds I would like to see more of, but I don't think we will, even though like half a dozen of the other ones, it does very much lend itself up to like something greater beyond this. And this would be cool if it was like a competition at the end. We got to all vote for like which one of these became a series, because that would actually be a tough choice, because there's a lot of ways we could go with it. There is one more. So before we get on to the last one, I'm going to give it a score. I'm going to say it's a 6.
That's kind of what I'm feeling too. I'm feeling a 6. I will have to say that is one of the things that I noticed since I read some things. I'm also interested in Japanese history, in that the family is definitely modeled after a Yakuza family. Like even the symbols and the way they do stuff and the gang members, which is a little bit like, oh, it's the bad guys versus the bad guys, even if the bad guys are presented as well. But, and there's a long history between animation studios and the Yakuza in Japan, but that's for another day. So yeah, overall, the art kept it from being meh. But once again, and I don't know what it is about. I don't know if it was the writing or the voice actress, but yeah, Ocho wasn't that good. I wasn't all that impressed with the father either, to be honest. Lop did a good job. Anyway, so yeah, a 6 is a 6 down trending like we've been talking about, maybe like a -6, but a 6 minus. But yeah, well, we got one more, so let's see if that redeems it.
Strong 5, light 6 is what we're sort of going at. So the last one is another Science Saru joint. This time it is from Eunyoung Choi. That is Misaki Yasa's right-hand lady president of Science Saru, now that he's stepped away from it. So another non-Japanese director. She's South Korean.
Okay.
After, in my opinion, how much they killed it with Tobi, Tobi, whatever it was called. Expectations are again very high. Hopefully Science Saru can kind of end this with a bang and not a whimper. We're gonna hop on to, what's this one called? Akakiri, the final installment of Star Wars Visions. Here we go. Star Wars Visions in the bag with Akakiri, the 9th and final one. Science Saru, round 2. Quite different from Astro Boy. What do you think?
I have to say this is my favorite one, probably. I really enjoyed the art style is a little bit different. At the beginning, I had a little trouble getting used to it, but I got used to it. I love the sound design with the drums and kind of the...
Sorry about that.
Speaking of drums, the drums and the noise with the, I don't know what it is, almost like I don't know, cups or something, like coconut shells or something. And I like how it ended. That was the first one that I was like, hey, something happened that I didn't expect it to. And I like the little journey that they took to it. So overall, it's very different, but it was definitely probably my favorite one of the bunch.
Completely agree. Hands down the best one. So of the 9. And I didn't think I would be saying that going into this final part.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty happy to say that the bride and Toby would have been my 2 choices, and coming out with 2 strong episodes like that, I would have been more than content. But just in the clutch, Science Arrow do it again and put together this pretty awesome like take on things.
Yep.
It's getting like it's weird, and like the animation is quite different. It's quite like jarring. It's not comfortable animation in the respect that it's like not, I wouldn't say it's overly pleasant. It's kind of challenging in places, but I like that. It's quite interesting. There's a couple of really cool shots.
Reminded me of Tower of God a little bit in kind of that kind of sketched way.
I was getting kind of like heavy metal vibes.
Oh.
Remember that?
Okay.
Like some old school kind of like independent animation from like the 70s and 80s. It's Science Arrow. Like they're always like interesting, if nothing else. Like they're never boring, never plain. They took chances. I thought like it's weird how like I felt that I can't remember the name of the character, but the main character,
the girl or the
Jedi. He was he was Tsubaki, I think.
Tsubaki.
He was like easily probably the most interesting character of all of the characters that we came across in this series.
Probably.
And that was I felt that way before even getting to the big twist at the end.
Right.
Like this idea of, you know, kind of trying to escape destiny and, you know, I guess predetermination, all these kind of things. I thought it was really interesting. Villain was cool.
Yep.
The lighting was great. The animation was great. Sound design was fantastic. I really didn't think anything could rival what we got in The Bride.
Right.
I'm pretty certain that The Bride was Kevin Penkin.
Sure.
This was just, fantastic. I'm gonna say it. This was a 9.
Oh wow! I don't think I'd give it that much. Also, the runtime hurt it a little bit. Like I said, it's a clip, right? It's almost like it's a short. So, you know, I enjoyed it. Like I said, I think it's easily the best. I'm going to give it an 8 because I think it would have been better if it was longer. I think some of the...
Now, I want to say easily the best at an 8 would be equal to The Bride.
Yeah, but if I had to flip a coin, I'd prefer this over The Bride. Even though I think The Bride... Would I be interested in seeing more of this series? Of an episode 9 like continuation? No. I think it was pretty good of what it was. I don't want to see a second of these episodes. Done this style or done that story, that's fine. But like I don't want to see it. But The Bride, I'd want to probably see another one. So maybe The Bride was a little bit better now that I'm thinking about it, just because I'd like to see, I could easily watch another one of those or a whole season of those, frankly. So, but yeah, I'd still probably say an 8.
Okay, so let's go quick rundown. Overall, Star Wars Visions gets a pass from me. There's hits and there are misses, but there's enough hits and enough like fine that makes the whole experience worthwhile. And it's not that much of an endeavor. Like we got through it all in a single evening, a single sitting. So I'm sure you guys could do it too. But if someone was not interested in checking out all 9 parts, what would your top 3 choices be that they have to check out?
You have to check out. Well, I would definitely say episode 9 for sure. Akakiri. Probably The Bride, which is episode 4. And to be honest, for me, probably The Ninth Jedi, the episode 5, just because it's the longest one. It kind of feels like an episode. I know what you're gonna say, but like probably that one. So I'd say 4, 5, and 9.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with you on Akakiri. I'm also going to go with you on The Bride, of course. They were the top 2. Not my top 2 in terms of score, but I am going to throw in my second overall high score, which was Toby.
Right.
But I'm going to give a special mention to the twins, even though it was not like the best.
Sure.
Visually, it's very strong. And now that I've kind of like consumed all 9, I think they're the 3 with, you know, an addendum being the 4th one that you would have to check out. Overall, though, like, it's good. I really would like more from some of these. There's at least 3 that I could continue watching and be happy enough to watch it. And including in that would be The Ninth Jedi. I could totally watch more of that. Biggest stinker for me would have to be... it's tough. There's a couple of bad ones. Tatooine Rhapsody, maybe number 2.
I'd probably say that one. I actually didn't really all much enjoy the first one that much, but yeah, probably. I don't know. The Elder was pretty janky for me at the same time, so I'm just gonna say. I'm gonna say The Elder just because it's longer. That's the one that I'm gonna do. Yeah, two and The Elder kind of disappointed me the most because I thought there was something there, as opposed to episode 2, which I didn't have any really high hopes for.
Well, you said rock opera at the beginning. I was expecting like a musical.
Yeah, I mean that's how it was presented to me.
I guess if you want to see Joseph Gordon-Levitt in an anime,
right,
then that's something. But otherwise, nah.
I do have to say, overall, this is not what I was expecting, to be honest. I was expecting something a little bit more along the lines of the Animatrix or Animatrix. Ugh, can't speak right now. Anyway, yes, so which was a more of an adult kind of take on stuff and kind of long stories and kind of expanding the world, where that's not really what this was. This really seemed like a portfolio kind of from different artists, all with they're all set in the same kind of setting to some degree with the same tools, but they all went at it about a different way. I have to say that if you were not a huge anime person, this is a pretty good look at like the state of anime right now. There's a couple people missing, right? But overall, I mean, there are some really good not just interesting but different, and look at kind of different kind of anime styles out there, including the ones that we don't really care about, like chibi, but in my opinion. But I thought it was a pretty good primer for, I mean, there are some really risky anime in here in terms of like right out of the mainstream. And there's some really good ones and there's some really not so good ones, but each one seemed different to me, you know what I mean? It wasn't like all of them seemed roughly there was no repeats in my opinion.
All right, my battery is running low, which means we are running out of time. Star Wars Visions, you have been an interesting experience. Hopefully we'll see more from you in the future. Until next time, fair listeners, bye-bye, love you, bye.
See you later, Weebelows.
Scraw.